the Lamborghini for a day or two, and he had access to the house, and he knows better than to be talking about the things that he does with Big Brother Puff on national television.
Oh, apparently not.
Everything ain't for everybody.
The former CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch and two others have been arrested as part of a criminal investigation by the FBI.
The fashion industry just received a shocking revelation that nobody anticipated. Mike mogul both Matthew and Jeff. Similar to Diddy's case, Smith and Fit, two major figures behind the Abomi and Fitch empires, were arrested on federal charges. This is where things get really crazy. There have been rumors that Diddy may have given the feds a list of influential names to save himself, but many people have written it off as mere rumors. However, following these high-profile arrests, it wouldn't be shocking for anyone to see that former Abercrombie and Fitch CEO Mike Jeff, one of the most influential executives in the fashion industry, would be the first prominent figure to fall. Jeff, his colleague Matthew Smith, and an alleged middleman named James Jacobson were recently charged with federal offenses for operating a frightening underground operation that involved the movement of individuals. If you get what I mean, Diddy was charged with a number of identical offenses. A coincidence, perhaps, but let's look more closely. Federal investigators are charging Jeff Smith and Jacobson with coercing young male models through deception, fraud, and even coercion, who believed they were entering a serious modeling opportunity. According to insiders, Jeffrey staged these twisted gatherings at his mansion in New York, enticing them with the prospect of game-changing modeling jobs, only to plunge them into a murky realm of extreme raw dogging. Although Diddy's infamous freak-off parties are widely known, it turns out that the fashion industry also hosts covert instances of these exploitative, drug-related gatherings. The FBI initially launched an investigation into Mike Jeff and his associates last year after a shocking BBC report claimed that Jeff and his partner had exploited and used young men at exclusive gatherings held in both their New York properties and upscale hotels across the world. However, the twist is that for months, they were unable to compile enough reliable evidence to make a case, until an insider tip fell into their lap. Rumor has it that the tip may have come from Diddy himself, Bradley Pierce. According to Peace, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York was forthright in his description of the shocking charges levied against Jeffrey. Jeff used a middleman and a network of recruiters to carefully select men for him and his partner. Peace further claimed that Jeff used his influence as the strong CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch to lure victims with promises of opportunity, only to use them to satisfy his and Matthew Smith's most sinister ambitions. This was about domination, privilege, and mind-numbing abuse, not just power.
Using his power, his wealth, and his influence to traffic men for his own sexual pleasure and that of his romantic partner, Matthew Smith.
The article claims that James Jacobson was employed by Jeffrey and Smith, as Jacobson was the chief recruiter and middleman. It is said that his role went beyond recruiting. He also conducted private tryouts with young, aspirational male models all over the world to gauge their willingness to participate and act in exchange for money. After Jeff and Smith gave their approval, these men were flown to upscale hotels or exclusive homes in New York for commercial.
Jeffries and Smith employed James Jacobson to act as a recruiter to find men. Jacobson engaged in, quote, tryouts with men across the world where he would typically pay them to engage in sex acts with him. Following the tryouts with Jacobson, Smith would often then personally approve whether the men who were selected would meet Jeffries and Smith. The defendants would fly the selected men to Jeffries and Smith's homes in the Hamptons of New York City or to hotels around the world in such places as England, France, Italy, Morocco, and St. Bart's for the purpose of attending events to engage in commercial.
Most of these men allegedly had no notion what was in store for them, and many of them had no idea what characteristics of the items they would need to do. They claimed to have been promised modeling jobs with Abercrombie and Fitch, which they believed would be their big break. However, when they arrived, they were confronted with a completely different reality. According to Peace, staff members forced them to sign strict non-disclosure agreements, which later functioned as instruments of control and intimidation, guaranteeing their silence long after the interactions were over.
In an interview process that did not inform the men of the details of the sex events before they attended, including the full extent and nature of the sexual activity that would be required of the men at these events. They caused the men to believe that attending these sex events could yield modeling opportunities with Abercrombie or otherwise benefit their careers.
As the case expands, the relationships between the section where these aspiring models were reportedly forced to drink alcohol that had been tampered with is part of the horrible crimes committed by Diddy, the proud enablers, and the business. Viagra and muscle relaxants speak volumes about the extent of power abuse in the entertainment industry. As you may remember, this isn't a standalone accusation. Court documents show that Diddy allegedly used similar tactics with young musicians who were desperate to succeed in the music industry. These troubling parallels are igniting online speculation, with many even speculating that Diddy may have been directly involved in setting up these so-called freak-off parties for Jeff and Smith, adding fuel to the fire. The prosecution has 15 male victims ready to testify, alleging that Jeff funneled millions of dollars into making sure these disturbing operations ran smoothly and remained hidden for years. Because of the size of Jeffrey's covert network, detectives believe that there may be many more victims out there while she is still without bail. Diddy KES ended up behind bars. Mike. With a $10 million bond, Jeff was able to obtain his release. The two men's cases were very similar, with both facing both criminal and civil charges. The primary distinction, where Diddy is accused of targeting aspiring models, was crucial to the universe of inspiration for young artist Jeffy. Without the unprecedented investigative work done by the BBC, this case probably would have remained under the radar. Discovered scary testimonies from people like former model David Bradbury, whose startling testimony served as a linchpin in the case. Bradbury described how the middleman made it apparent that he would lose his dignity if he met with the CEO. It was as if he was selling fame, which Bradbury revealed in his interview. The meeting was eventually set up, and Bradbury was taken to Jeffy's Hampton mansion, which he later said held painful memories. When Diddy's secrets were made public, we thought we had heard it all, but it appears we're just scratching the surface of these dark networks embedded within the fashion and entertainment industries. When you look at these chilling charges against Diddy, it turns out that the reality of powerful people preying on desperate young talents who are seeking breakthroughs goes far deeper than Hollywood. Bradbury's revelations allowed more victims to come forward, corroboration of the chilling narrative, and some even allege even more disturbing details, like being injected with liquid Viagra by Jeffrey Star. Mike. As more victims come forward, it's becoming harder to deny that something sinister has been lurking in the shadows of the industry for decades. Jeff and even Jeffrey Epstein make it clear that the world of pop culture in high society has darker corners than many would dare to imagine. I'd like to hear your thoughts on these disturbing revelations. Do you believe Diddy gave away evidence to implicate Jeff? Leave your comments below with your opinions.